Hey, so once again, we're in my favorite unit, genetics. And this week, we're really getting more into how does genetics work? And that all comes down to our big friend, DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. DNA is pretty awesome because all the parts of DNA, all of this, create proteins, and proteins create who you are. Why some of you have dark skin, some have light skin, some have curly hair, some have straight hair, some have blue eyes, some have brown eyes, some are tall, some are short, some can sing, some can't sing. All of that is based on your DNA, straight from these little patterns. And all of our DNA comes down to these four bases: adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine, and how they're formed and what order they're in. Our DNA, as we talked about last week with meiosis and mitosis, is all found in the nucleus of a cell. So we've got our cell here, and inside the nucleus, the center part, are going to be our chromosomes. So when we did meiosis, mitosis, we talked about how chromosomes hold all our genetic material. You get some from mom and some from dad, and that's our biological mom and biological dad. And inside the chromosome, what looks like crazy spaghetti here is actually just super twisted DNA. So there's our DNA here. And it's in this pattern called a double helix because it spins on itself. And when it spins, it can crunch down like a spring. And the more of it that can squish together, the more fits inside your chromosomes. So when we look into this, we're going to zoom in on our bases and everything in here. And this is what DNA would look like if we drew it out. It's got those base pairs that I mentioned before: adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine. These guys are like puzzle pieces. They can only hook to the one that matches them. So you can kind of see in the little picture here. Adenine can only hook to thymine. Guanine can only hook to cytosine. Thymine can only hook to adenine. And cytosine can only hook to guanine. And they hook together using this special thing called a hydrogen bond. When we get to 8th grade, we'll talk about how these bonds work. And essentially, it means the electrons and things are holding each other together. They are bonded or stuck together. Think of it kind of like a magnet. But the big point here is that adenine only fits to thymine. See how the puzzle piece only fits together like that? Now, in real life, it looks more like these guys here. But we can see over here, it's because when we actually shape it the way it would look like with our cells and our atoms and things like that, this one only has 2 pieces to hook together, and guanine and cytosine have 3 pieces. So think about it like a puzzle piece, and it makes sense that they can only connect together. Then once they're connected together, on the outside, we have a sugar phosphate backbone. It's called a backbone because it's like your back. I know you can't see it because I'm pointing on the camera. Your backbone back here, which gives the whole thing structure. And it's called a sugar phosphate because this is a group of carbon atoms that create sugar. And then this is a phosphate, which is another type of element. And so it goes in a pattern: phosphate, sugar, phosphate, sugar, phosphate, sugar, or sugar, phosphate, sugar, phosphate, sugar, phosphate. And that's part of the fact that it kind of like sticks out, that helps it crunch down like a spring so we can fit lots of it together. So we have our sugar phosphate backbone and our base pairs. When we look at a base and a sugar phosphate backbone, we call that a nucleotide. So this little section right here is our nucleotide. And we can see that a DNA strand is simply lots and lots of nucleotides all hooked together. This crunching is really important. If we could take all of our DNA in our entire body and string it out in this really long little string, it could reach to the moon. It's a ridiculously large amount of DNA. So we need to have these distinct shapes to help make sure it goes in the right places. So look at our fancy side here. Once again, we can see it's because we've got 2 pieces for adenine and thymine to hook together, 3 for guanine and cytosine. You can see our fancy pieces here. And this pattern is going to what tells us about each other. So like right here could mean that you have blue eyes. Well, right here means that you're tall. And it's different for everybody, but it's those same 4 bases no matter what organism we're looking at. It just repeats.